think that was the best, not this regular season, but when we played in the playoffs and everyone saw me flip off the birds and kind of lose my a little bit. That wasn't a great reflection of who I am. I'm built for these moments to be able to handle circumstances like that, and I've been able to grow since then.
So it's an interesting way of looking at it. I mean, some people are calling him the Robin of this team, to go alongside of Luka. Well, like most superheroes, and Robin is a superhero, don't let anyone tell you otherwise, they all have an origin story. His origin story is as interesting as any story in the entire NBA. What would it be? How would we tell this story if he winds up 2.5 weeks from now sitting there holding up that trophy?
You said it in the tease to the show. It's redemption. I mean, that's really what this is. This is like Eminem's song, Cinderella Man. Like, this is really what has happened with him. And we're all allowed to have our narratives and our conversations about him evolve along with his evolution as well as it gets back to the basketball court. So yeah, there's so much for Kyrie to benefit from this, and it's interesting to see how he does in this finals, especially on the court in Boston, because I truly believe when he says it, and you can hear it from the guys in Boston, but the players who are still left in Boston, mainly Tatum and Brown, they look to him, they have a good relationship. They admire him. He looks at them same way. I don't think he's trying to beat the Celtics as much for redemption. I think he's trying to beat Boston in a much different way, if you understand what I mean.
The fans is what you're getting at?
Yeah, the whole thing. Media, fans, the market, all of it.
Yeah, that was my thought, too. And I think there's a soundbite where he references the Coliseum, right? And trying to win the crowd over is kind of what he says.
Are you not entertained?
There you go. Like, obviously he's not going to win the crowd over, but that's a smart basketball-consuming city and town, right? And fan base. And so if he has a series that leaves them with, wow, you got to appreciate the basketball of it all, then that probably is as close as you will get to winning them over.
I think if he has them booing loudly, he's winning.
Well, right. But like, that's because that would mean that he is hooping at a high level. So I think this has been really fascinating, Greeny. I know we've talked about it a lot through the series and through the last series. I just think we have to hold room for these players to grow both as players and athletes and as men. Like, Kyrie's just in a different place in his life, and it's clear.
That's right. And for him to say, and I want to bring Domonique Foxworth into this conversation as well, for him to say, as he did yesterday, when I gave the bird to the fans, that wasn't my best moment. Like, that's an acknowledgement. He just seems like a different person. Look, I don't pretend to know Kyrie Irving well or even at all, so maybe it's dangerous for me to just make a bunch of assumptions based on the things we see, but he's been so famous for so long that you can't help but have your impressions, and he just seems like an entirely different person now than he has been for so much of the time that he has been in the spotlight. Domonique, what do you think of all this?
If they win the title this year, it'll be one of the most unexpected championship teams in a long time. And it also will do what you guys are saying. It'll be a makeover for his legacy. We won't think about the Brooklyn debacle and all the issues that he had there nearly in the same way. We'll look at Kyrie as a redemption story because we love to build people up, tear them down, and build them back up again. But in this case, he's doing a lot to give us reason to believe in him and celebrate him. So it's been a fun run, but the shocking thing to me is that there's no way at the beginning of the playoffs, when they signed or when they traded for Kyrie, most of us thought it was a bad trade. When they signed Kyrie, we're like, it's not going to work. Then they made those trades for Gafford and Washington, and no one's like, oh, this is a difference maker. Even when they beat the #1 seed in the West, people are still picking the Minnesota Timberwolves over them. And they're just in a great story and a great situation, and it'll be fun to see how it plays out in the finals.
Nick, not everybody. Tim Legler was first. I jumped on that bandwagon quick. And by the way, Eminem just dropped a new album, so I think I'm current when it comes to an Eminem reference. Thank you very much. But again, when you look at what they've become, we've talked already about the environment that they have also built there in Dallas that has also allowed Kyrie Irving to get back to best.
But I'm looking, Nick, in your notes, I'm looking at this sentence. This would be the most unexpected champion in modern NBA history. And at first, a statement that large, you start to think, well, could it possibly be true? But when you think about it, this is a team that was fined at the end of last season for tanking its way out of the playoffs.
$750,000.
Kyrie Irving is a player that nobody wants. I mean, it's an overstatement. People did not want. People were not lining up to grab him. There were questions about it sounds crazy now, about Luka Doncic's dedication to it, right? About whether he's in the shape he needs to be in. Those existed. That happened. That was
whether
the
you
world
could
we
have
lived
another
in.
star play with him. There's talk about other players who had a hard time with Luka because he dominated the ball so much.
And the West being as good as it is, so Nick, I think you could support that this would be about as surprising a champion as we've seen in a long time.
I don't know who would knock them off. I think the Raptors are up there, but once the Warriors started to have all those injuries, it was different. I think the Pistons, when they knocked off the Lakers, was a kind of a surprising one. But off the top of my head, I'm not sure that I could think of anyone else who would be nearly as surprising. I mean, even as recent as the beginning of the conference finals, I didn't feel like people were giving the Dallas Mavericks the respect that they've earned right now.
If we were to go back to just specifically the Pistons beating the team that had Shaq and Kobe and Gary Payton and Karl Malone, that was a massive upset. More recently than that, I literally am just calling up all of the championships to see if there's something that I'm not thinking of. I can't think of one. I can't think of one off the top of my head that would have been as much a surprise. If you go back a year ago today, if I said to you, Monica, the Dallas Mavericks are going to win next year's NBA championship, you would have laughed.
100%.
You would have made that eye roll.
I'd have been like, Greeny, all right, whatever you say. You're clearly on one today.
I mean, possibly the last time Dallas won their championship.
That's what I was thinking.
Because that was the beginning of the Heatles and that whole thing, and then they turned the tables on that championship first year.
But then that goes to what we continue to say, how difficult it is in year one for things to happen. And I think in this arc, you guys, you can't leave out the fact that this was a team that tanked last season.
Right.
And so there is a different appreciation for the opportunity to win, not just with Kyrie and Luka, but even with the guys that they rescued
and don't
from
forget,
programs that are struggling.
They tanked to keep a pick that became Derek Lively, who is a huge piece and reason why they are where they are.
If only we had someone sitting in the room who could do some research on this for us. Hey, Hembo, I need to know the last time an NBA championship team before this season began was a greater long shot than what the Dallas Mavericks were this year.
No pressure,
We'll get that
Hembo.
to you as we go.